So it has been a while since we've had this issue. I put this motor back in January. We reused a fuel pump on the side of the block, and I also replaced the overflow valve. Now, ever since we did this, we've been running the factory in-tank pump on the 3rd gen truck. So the problem is it's always been a restriction, and I've tried to figure out ways around it so that I could keep the pump, this and that. So we finally found a solution. I'm going to show you what this thing does when we start it up in the cold. It's like probably 52 degrees. It's probably not going to tell me. I think the weather, it said it's like under 50. You guys can see we got frost for days on the windows. So with that being said, I am going to start this thing. Now what happens is it actually idles at 8 PSI of fuel pressure. My gauge is pegged at 30 because for some reason the gauge is screwed up. So it idles at about 8. And when you're decelerating at high RPM, it's about 12 to 13 PSI, which is way too low for a 12 valve engine. Now, this thing should be idling at about 17 PSI, and I was told plus 10 for every 1,000. So it like, I don't know. I think it should be like 3,000 or 30 PSI at 3,000 RPM, something like that. I don't think it's an extra 10 on top. I think at 1,700 it should be. See, I don't even know at this point because I haven't seen it, but it's like I'm normally accelerating in between 8 and 10 PSI, and it's just super low. In the morning, this thing just spews white smoke like horrible. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get this thing fired up and show you guys. All right, so it does say 52 degrees, but it does fire right up. Now, the problem isn't the fire up, even though that was probably one of the hardest cold starts that I have done yet. The problem is when I start accelerating, if I keep it in any gear, it's just gonna spew white smoke. So I have to shift into first, it starts misfiring, then you shift to second, then it starts misfiring, then you shift to third, then it starts, you know, kind of clearing up as you start building up speed, and then it's all right. But in the meantime, I'm gonna try to see if I can show you without blasting out the neighbors. I'll try to show you what it does. All right, so I don't know if you'll be able to see this. It just smokes. Alright, now I'm going to show you when we get out on the main road. I put the back window open so maybe you'll be able to see it. But it'll make itself very apparent when I get on the main road and try to accelerate. Now it's 52 degrees, which isn't very cold. You know, for me, that's whatever. For the truck does not like it at one bit. So, misfiring, shift. Misfiring, shift. And then it's still right here, it's misfiring, and then it clears up. That was 2,100 RPMs, but there's just no power. And now we're rolling. So right around that 2,100 mark, it'll start to misfire. So we're gonna try to remedy that today. And hopefully after 9 months of, you know, I should have just done this, I'm finally gonna fix it. Okay, so we are finally at the shop in the afternoon. I waited all day for this. This is what we got. $160 overnighted. I know I could have got one on Amazon for cheaper, but shop that I deal with locally here was able to get it next day. So this is what we got, a fuel sump. Not sure who actually makes this, but it is American made. He said guaranteed, and we've used him before for a lot of everything, so I kind of trust his word on this as I'm unboxing everything in front of you. So here's that. It's a 2-hole. I'm gonna throw all that away. We're not using the return, but we're not going to be using that. And he said that should fit in there and seal that. And then we need another fitting here. So it looks like, I think it's 1/2 inch, but yeah, so we're going to use, there's the 2 bolts. So looks like they're both 1/2, and then get that thread in there. Throw some Teflon on that. This is basically going to be the complete unit here. The 2 bolts to the bottom. It's got the O-ring. He actually gave me a block off plug for the return side. Luckily had one, so I'm going to tighten that down, and I'm going to tighten this other brass fitting down, and that'll be that. And then we're going to go drill some holes. I got 15 feet of 1/2-inch fuel hose. I got a 1/2-inch T, which I should have got ID, but you know what, it is what it is. It fits in there. It's just a little bit like little loose. A 3/4 doesn't fit, so whatever. 15 feet of that's definitely gonna be more than enough. I went and got 5-gallon buckets, unfortunately from Lowe's, because I really don't like Lowe's, but you know what, they were cheap. So all in all, we're probably into this about $250. We're gonna see, I guess right about this area is where we're gonna be drilling, is what he told me, so that's what we're gonna do. All right, so everything is set up and ready. We got the drill bit, the sump, all of the fittings, and the hoses. The buckets are all ready and lined up. So first thing I would like to do, I don't know if you guys can see that, but up there is where the fitting is at that we need to pull off. There is a fuel pressure sensor up there that I need to take out because we're not using it. We've actually tapped into the side of the P pump. So I'm gonna pull that, and that's where we're gonna put our Y fitting, or our T fitting, sorry. And then, yeah, so I'm gonna pull that out and cut it, and we're probably gonna lose a little bit of fuel. All right, so after telling myself I wasn't gonna get dirty, here is the fitting that we just pulled out. That's a push lock style. Now that I see how small that hole is, I mean, I guess I'm really not concerned because this one's actually bigger. Yeah, so this is what we're actually gonna use. I wanted to get a Y, but you know what, it is what it is. We'll make it work, and we'll clean the lines up nicely and make sure there's no kinks. So basically I want it to be, this one will come from the sump, go in, go straight through into the pump, and then this will be our fuel pump that is in the tank, which I'm going to disconnect and only use for auxiliary purposes, like if we need to prime it. So that'll be what this line is for, and then all of the suction will be going that way. So all right, so we are draining now. I am not sure how full this bucket is, so unfortunately I can't see through it because it's blue. But what I am going to end up doing is swapping these buckets out as they get full. Even though the camera makes it look like you could probably see through it, you really can't. So I don't know how full it is, but I'll probably end up taking the fuel cap off as well. But we have plenty of buckets to fill. I'm coming to conclusion that draining the fuel is actually the longest process, like longest part of this, because the lines already ran. It's done up there, so I honestly should have just started draining the fuel first, but didn't think about it. I had well over a half a tank of fuel, so this is 35 gallons, so about 17.5 gallons, somewhere around there. So we're on bucket 4. These are 5-gallon buckets. I think I'm filling them till, I think they all have 4 gallons in them, so there's 12 gallons plus this one, and then we'll have to use the last bucket there. But yeah, this thing is ready to go in. Just like all that's tightened down, hopefully sealed, because I don't feel like dealing with any leaks. All right, there it is. got it back on, everything is done, the whole thing is bled. I ran the fuel pump for a little while and then unplugged it, and it fired up under its own power. In idle, if you rev it, it blows a lot darker of a black cloud. So that tells me that it's getting more fuel pressure and more fuel. It doesn't really, it smokes about normal when you're just driving it. I mean, it has a little bit more of a haze to it now. So I'm gonna end up ordering a new fuel pressure gauge and new gauges in general, because I need a lot. I'm gonna do the oil pressure, fuel pressure, and boost. And I'm gonna get the white gauges with the green back, probably glow shift, but these are black background because I thought they'd match back in the day, and I just don't like them. And the fuel pressure gauge is shot. It just pegged at 30, so gonna get those on order, and then I will make a follow-up video. Well, I'll probably just do that on the gauges themselves, but other than that, I mean, it's running fine under its own power. There's no fuel pump on. I have the fuel pump relay pulled, so it's running under its own power. Okay, so we've been driving now for about 30-35 minutes, something like that. The truck is still very much so running on its own. Fuel pump relay is unplugged. It's actually in the door next to me. Still running good. It's running a lot better. It's not misfiring. It hasn't misfired like it usually does. EGTs are a lot higher. Smoke is a lot darker. So I was wondering if I was gonna have more EGTs or less EGTs. Here we go, I gotta shift in the gears, so. Sounds a lot healthier. It just, I don't know. One hand shifting. So, other than that, I mean, the thing is running absolutely awesome. I'll do a little walk around on the sump and where we tied in the lines to here in a little bit when we stop. But, I mean, all in all, like, now I'm going to start playing with the AFC tuning. And I'm going to get some gauges on order so that I can really monitor. Fifth gear, climbing the mountain. EGTs were just about 1300, no big deal. All right, so that says about 41 minutes. We're into it about an hour. I don't see any fuel leaks, luckily, so nothing, that black spot's not fuel, that's tar. So what I'm gonna end up doing is tomorrow morning, which you guys will see here in about 20 seconds, I'm gonna fire it up and I'm gonna see how it runs as is, you know, no fuel pump. Like I said, you can see here, here's the fuel pump relay. I pulled it, so it is running off of the fuel pump on the side of the block. So I'm gonna start it up in the morning and see how it drives with a cold start. It should be about 52 tomorrow, so we'll see, but that's enough to make it act up. This will be the last acceleration clip for you, and then we'll start it tomorrow morning. I just need to get it tuned up top to where it pulls a little bit of fuel, because there is way too much fuel at the top end. So I'm gonna do that and then see you guys tomorrow. Okay, so here we are the next day. We're gonna see how this thing starts. I haven't even tried. Fuel pump is disconnected. Now I am gonna give it like this much throttle, just so that I know I don't have to sit here and crank it, because I don't know if this thing holds prime like it's supposed to when you turn the P pump off, because in my case I have to stall it because the P pump shut off doesn't work. But I'm gonna go ahead and try it here. Oh, let's see. Ooh, that fired up pretty good. Oh, it's going up, down. Not sure what it's doing. Going up and down in the RPMs. Get the heat on. Yeah, I mean, it fired up pretty good. I'm wondering how it'll do when I decide to go around the block. Unfortunately, it's not like cold, it's like 60, but I don't know. It can't be any worse than what it was. RPMs are a little low. It's like 750, right around there. I have this set at like 800 to 850. So, and the EGTs are like 223. So, it's blowing a little white, which is I mean, that's fair. It is a little cold, but it's not like, it's not misfiring. It's not doing anything it really shouldn't be. Just a little bit of white. I mean, I feel like that's normal. Alright, we're pulling out. Yeah, I'd say that's a lot better. It's like 60, but even still, that's cold enough that it would still be doing it. Not as bad, but it would be doing it, so that's awesome. I'm gonna call that good. Definitely smokes a lot more, so we're gonna try to get that tuned out, but we'll see. But I just don't want to mess with the pre-boost, because the pre-boost is perfect. It doesn't, like just a little bit of a haze. So